Hey, you know that app you scroll through every night? Yeah, TikTok. Well, it just went through national security surgery. January 2026. TikTok became American. Well, sort of. But here's the thing, this isn't really about ownership at all. You ever wonder why the US government cares so much about a dancing app? It's not about the dances, trust me. This is about something way bigger. Something invisible. Something that could quietly shape what you think, what you believe. The fight wasn't over content, it was over custody. Custody of your feed. Custody of the algorithm that decides it. So what actually happened in January? Let me tell you a story. A story about invisible power and digital borders. Take a look at this announcement. TikTok USDS Joint Venture LLC. Sounds boring, right? But it's actually pretty wild. ByteDance now owns less than 20%. The rest, American and global investors. But is that really the point? Here's what they're not telling you in plain English. This is about auditing the invisible. Auditing the algorithm itself. Can you even audit a black box? Can you control something you can't fully see? Let's find out. Okay, so what does this new American TikTok actually mean? There are 3 control points they're trying to lock down. First, governance. The board is now majority American. 7 directors, and guess what? ByteDance gets just 1 or 2. Second, your data. Every video you like, every second you watch, all stored in Oracle's US cloud now. They're promising third-party cybersecurity audits. NIST standards, CISA requirements. You know what that means? It means someone's actually checking. Third, and this is where it gets interesting, the algorithm. They're putting it under what they call security safeguards. Some reports say they'll retrain it on US data only. Basically rebuilding the recommendation engine from the ground up. Oracle, yes, that old database company, becomes the trusted security partner. They're reviewing source code, monitoring updates, the whole 9 yards. Think about it. App updates you download, someone in the US has to sign off on them first. But here's the question nobody's really answering. Does changing who owns it actually change who controls the code? You see, the US wants something specific. Not just American owners, they want an auditable system. A system they can inspect. It's not about censorship. It's about knowing what's under the hood, knowing if someone's messing with what you see. Would you trust a car if you couldn't check the brakes? Same logic, except this car drives your opinions. So governance, data, algorithm. 3 locks on 3 doors. But why does America even need these locks in the first place? Let me show you something. In 2024, researchers at Graphica published a report. It's called The Americans with a hashtag. They found 15 fake accounts on X, 1 on TikTok, all pretending to be frustrated American voters, all linked to China. These accounts posted about gun control, homelessness, racial inequality, the Israel-Hamas war, hot-button American issues. You know, the stuff that divides us? The bios were designed to look patriotic. American flags, soldiers, hashtags like, I love America, but I'm disappointed. Sound familiar? Here's the weird part. One account claimed to have depression and stopped posting for 3 weeks. Then came back with an excuse. But they slipped up. Sometimes they posted in Chinese by accident, like hydro bill, then quickly deleted it. Oops. This operation has a name, Spamiflage, also called Dragon Bridge. It's been running since at least 2019 across 40 platforms. Google disrupted over 10,000 Dragon Bridge accounts in just the first quarter of 2024. Think about that scale for a second. Microsoft also warned about it. They said Chinese state-linked actors were using AI tools to scale up influence operations before elections. Meta took down networks too. They found coordinated inauthentic behavior targeting US voters during the 2024 cycle. China wasn't the only one, but it was on the list. And the US Justice Department. They actually charged 40 Chinese police officers with running online harassment campaigns against dissidents. Right here in America, they created thousands of fake personas on Twitter to spread propaganda, harass Chinese Americans, and push government narratives. Thousands. So the attempts are real. The U.S. intelligence community confirms it. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence calls it malign foreign influence. But, and this is crucial, did it actually work? Did these fake accounts change anyone's vote? Did they shift public opinion? Here's what Graphica found. Despite all the effort, the accounts failed to gain significant traction. Most had zero engagement. Google said 80% of Dragon Bridge YouTube channels had zero subscribers. 30% of videos had zero views. Zero. Microsoft's report said the same thing. Lots of content, AI generated even, but limited success in actually persuading real people. So here's the paradox. Tons of evidence of attempts, almost no evidence of actual impact. It's like firing 1,000 arrows and missing every target. But does that mean we shouldn't worry? Think about it. If someone keeps trying to break into your house and failing, do you just ignore them? The US government's position is clear. We're not waiting for the smoking gun. We're managing the risk before it becomes a crisis. Okay, so here's where people get confused. There are actually two completely different things happening, and everyone mixes them up. Folder 1. Influence operations. That's the fake accounts, the propaganda, the coordinated posts. Think of it as the surface layer. Platforms can catch this. They delete accounts, publish transparency reports, share data with researchers. We can see this happening. Folder 2. Platform-level manipulation. That's when someone with access to the algorithm itself tweaks what gets shown to millions of people. This is invisible. You can't see it from the outside. No transparency report will tell you if someone tweaked a ranking model. Think of it this way. Folder 1 is graffiti on the wall. Annoying, but you can paint over it. Folder 2 is rewiring the building's electricity while you sleep. You don't even know the lights are dimmer until someone points it out. So when the US forced this TikTok deal, they weren't just worried about Chinese accounts posting propaganda. That's manageable. They're worried about invisible dials inside the system. The ability to subtly boost or suppress content based on the secret instructions. Now, do we have proof that ByteDance did this? No smoking gun. No leaked memo saying suppress Taiwan content in Pennsylvania. But that's exactly the point. This kind of manipulation doesn't leave obvious fingerprints. It's designed not to. So the USDS deal is basically the US saying, we're going to make Folder 2 auditable. We're installing cameras in the control room. But can you actually audit an algorithm? Isn't machine learning just a black box nobody understands? Let's dig into that. Here's the thing about black boxes. You don't need to see inside to know if something's wrong. Imagine you have a vending machine. You put in $1, press Coke, and sometimes you get Pepsi. You don't need to open it up to know it's broken. Researchers call this black box auditing. You test inputs and outputs. You look for patterns. You don't need to see the gears turning. A famous study from Stanford did this with YouTube. They created fake accounts with different viewing histories and watched what got recommended. They found political bubbles, conspiracy theory rabbit holes, all without seeing a single line of YouTube's code. The patterns told the story, but black box testing has limits. It can tell you something weird is happening, but not why and not who caused it. That's where gray box auditing comes in. You get some inside access, not the full recipe, but the ingredient list. For TikTok, this might mean, show us your A/B testing logs. Show us which features you're experimenting with. Show us when you update the model, what data you used, who approved it. Not the model weights, just the paper trail. And then there's white box auditing, full access, source code, training data, deployment pipelines, everything. That's what the US really wants. Think of it like this. Black box is watching the chef cook through the window. Gray box is reading the menu and order receipts. White box is standing in the kitchen, checking every ingredient, watching every step, and tasting the food before it goes out. So what would a real audit package look like? Let me break it down into two parts: database control and algorithm control. For the database, every time someone accesses US user data, there's a log. Who accessed it? When? What did they look at? Access keys stored in hardware security modules. Admin privileges split between multiple people. Like nuclear launch codes, 2 keys, different people. Third-party auditors come in regularly, check the logs, verify nobody's doing anything shady. Like health inspectors, but for data. For the algorithm, version control for everything. Every change to the model, every new feature, every policy tweak gets documented. Why was this video recommended? The system should be able to tell you, these were the signals, these were the weights, this was the reasoning. A/B tests need approval, especially during elections. You can't just randomly experiment with political content and see what maximizes engagement. Code deployment. When you push an update, it needs to be signed, verified, and traceable. Like a blockchain for software updates, the EU actually already does some of this. It's called the Digital Services Act. Very large platforms must do independent audits. They have to assess systemic risks, including risks to democratic processes. And auditors get real access, not just PR statements. So no, it's not easy, but it's possible. You can audit a black box if you build the right scaffolding around it. All right, let's get into the uncomfortable part. What are the actual nightmare scenarios everyone's worried about but nobody wants to say out loud? Scenario 1. Data harvesting. TikTok knows where you live, what you care about, who you follow, what makes you angry. Now imagine that data in the hands of a foreign intelligence service. They could identify activists, journalists, military families, government workers, not for ads, for influence, for blackmail, for targeting. That's why access logs and encryption keys matter so much. Scenario 2. Algorithm tweaking. During an election, subtly boost content that makes one side look extreme. Just a little bit. You don't need to change millions of votes. Just suppress turnout in a few key districts by making people exhausted and cynical. It's not about fake news, it's about the volume knob. Turn up outrage, turn down hope. Shift the emotional temperature just enough. Scenario 3. The combo move. Fake accounts create divisive content. The algorithm gives it a tiny boost. Suddenly, it spreads. Graphica and Microsoft both documented this possibility. AI-generated personas plus algorithmic amplification. It's a force multiplier. Scenario 4. The infrastructure attack. This one's darker. China's Volt Typhoon hackers burrow into critical infrastructure. Power grids, water systems. They don't attack yet. They just sit there, waiting. Then during a crisis, maybe Taiwan, they create chaos. Power outages, confusion. And TikTok? It amplifies panic. Not with fake news, just by prioritizing the most alarming real videos. Is your neighborhood safe? Suddenly, it's not just a cyber attack. It's a psychological operation riding on top of it. That's what keeps Pentagon analysts up at night. So the USDS deal is done. ByteDance owns less than 20%. American board, Oracle oversight. Problem solved, right? Well, here's the watch list. Here's how you'll know if this is real control or just expensive theater. First, who signs the app updates? If ByteDance engineers can still push code without US approval, nothing's changed. Second, does the algorithm get audited for election risks or just cybersecurity? Security audits are important, but they're not enough. Third, who controls the admin passwords? Are they truly split between different people, or does one person still hold the master key? Fourth, are the audits real? Do auditors publish findings or just sign off on vague compliance statements? Transparency here is everything. Fifth, what happens outside TikTok? Remember, Spamouflage operates on 40 platforms. Controlling one app doesn't stop the influence operations. And sixth, watch how AI tools evolve. Microsoft warned that generative AI makes influence operations cheaper and more scalable every year. Deepfake videos, synthetic personas, automated A/B testing of propaganda messages. The technology is racing ahead of the regulation. So let's zoom back out. What is this really about? Is it about TikTok? Not really. TikTok is the test case, the guinea pig. It's the first time a democracy has tried to audit an algorithm at this scale. If it works, other countries will copy it. If it fails, we'll know regulation can't keep up with technology. Here's the core tension. You can't prove manipulation unless you catch someone red-handed. But by then, the damage is done. So, do you regulate based on possibility instead of proof? Where's the line between protecting democracy and overreacting to shadows? There's no perfect answer. But here's what we know. The attempts are real. The technology exists. The incentives are there. And in the age of AI-generated content and algorithmic feeds, your information environment is no longer just shaped by what people say. It's shaped by invisible systems that decide what you see, when you see it, and how often. Those systems have owners, and if those owners answer to a government that doesn't share your values, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's a design question. The USDS deal is an attempt to answer that question. Not with censorship, not with bans, but with audits. With accountability. Will it work? We don't know yet. Check back in a year. Watch for the signs I gave you. But here's my question for you. If you can't prove manipulation, should you regulate anyway? Where do you draw your line? Think about it. Because this isn't just about TikTok. It's about every algorithm that quietly shapes what you believe. Today's story ends here, but the real story is just beginning, and you're living in it right now.